How hard has it been teaching me operations?
Uh, I say this with all kinds of love in my heart. You are you are a pain in the ass,
I
and
guarantee it.
it's really been more. You buy into the idea when we talk about stuff and plan things out. You're like, oh yeah, that's perfect. That'll work. Awesome. And then you don't. And you don't follow that process, and it's been, we've been doing this for over 3 years now, because I got our a couple weeks ago, I got our, oh, congratulations, you've known Donnie for 4 years on Facebook pop up. I'm like, oh fuck, it's been that long.
Yeah,
But
shoot
it's
me
been
now.
a I've survived. But it's been a it's been a process to get you to, once we set a process in place and a system, to follow it.
Yeah, it's been a thing that's chased me my entire life. It's part of it is I don't remember. The other part of it is it feels so fucking mundane that I feel like I got to slow down every time to follow a process. So it takes me a lot of work to get focused in on doing the things. And what's funny is I know doing the boring stuff is what really helps build empires. It's remembering to do that stuff.
Well, and maybe this wasn't a saying in the Marines, but I'm assuming it was, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And the whole concept was take your time, follow the steps, do it right. And then, that goes quicker than when you just try and, head rush into a situation
But
and
that's
you don't
I
follow the
would challenge
steps.
that's also how you're wired, right? I'm totally not wired that way. And there's some major positives about being wired this way because I will do a lot of things, but there's some huge tragic, downsides of not following your own systems. And I worked for a guy once upon a time that used to create these systems, and this would be the new way we were doing things, and then would do the same thing I do to you all the time. And okay, we'll just forget we created that system altogether, and just go around it and do it. It used to drive me fucking bonkers. So I think it's something that I'm going to be working on for quite a long time, of being able to stay in and do the mundane thing. Asana's been huge for me. You
Yep.
know, that's given me a place to collect thoughts, see what's coming up. I drive Kevin nuts because I very rarely will click a check mark to say that task has been done. But yeah, I think if you got guys like me, that you got to find systems that will work within the matrix of my crazy ass mind.
Well, and it's understanding, I think, for a lot of people, because there's you come from a place of wanting to take action, and
Yes.
you want to do things, and you want to do things quickly. But it's helping people like that understand that, all right, so yes, we want to get things done in a really quick, timely manner, but if you don't follow this process and the system we have set up, it is going to take longer to get all the stuff done, because then we have to go back and fix a bunch of stuff, which we discovered, with one of our groups that didn't start through the
Yeah.
normal process. And it was like, oh, we didn't get that thing done. Oh, crap, we forgot that, because none of the normal task notifications went out. So it's like, oh, crap, we didn't do this thing. So that's really what it is. It allows you to do things at a speed, and create almost like a muscle memory of, here's how we do it. So it just happens over and over and over, and you can take that action faster. But at the beginning, it is painful. It's like, oh, I got to do this step, and it becomes, like like learning to clean your weapon in the military. They teach you a very specific process of how to take your weapon apart and where to put stuff down so you remember where all the pieces are and how to clean it and all that stuff.
And the
And
difference being,
that's
I guarantee you followed that step.
I did at the beginning, but I don't anymore because I figured out the process that works for me, so that I don't lose all the crap and I still get to turn my weapon in on time. But that's the reason they taught it, was so that you learned how to do it a specific way, and you could go do it without the drill sergeant or your NCO looking over your shoulders. But then as you figured it out, you learned, all right, I can do it this way and this is quicker for me. So but that's the thing with process. So it's all about actually helping speed up how things get done, not trying to slow stuff down.
Well, and I will say, I think one of the greatest things you said to me early on is not everybody's built like you. And you said it to me enough fucking times. I finally started hearing it because, I mean, in truth, I build for myself. And I know what I do and what I won't do. And, we saw some of our early networking groups and how much they went off the rails because we didn't have a whole lot of defined, take that back. You had a defined, laid out process system and everything else. I just wasn't going to follow it because it wasn't how I always did things. I always shoot from the hip. And learning that everybody doesn't shoot from the hip has been a valuable lesson because if I only build it for myself, nobody else can fucking use it. And it's a frustration as well because I just want everybody to run as fast as my head works. So, and they don't. So it's working within the means that they'll operate, which is no fucking fun.
Yeah, and you want everyone to run at your speed,
Oh yeah,
which is sprinting full speed ahead all the time.
yep.
And that's what you are looking for. Um there we have not found a lot of people who can keep up with that.
We will. They're out there.
I think we will totally, but up to this point we have not found the people who can sustain that. So yeah, it's the interesting conundrum of how do you move really fast but make it so multiple people can move fast at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. Because if you stay working at the speed of what others will work, you won't be able to hit the milestones and goals you need to work. You got to figure out how to make the system work so they do work at a faster pace, but things get done right. I really wish you were in Atlanta with me when I had the talk with Zack, because it was a damn good talk sitting down with him. We talked a lot of good things about operations and the like. And Zack's such a good guy, man. I mean, tons of knowledge up there in his freaking noggin. And the way he looks at operations as a business is just pretty rad. So I think you guys are going to be in for a kick or trick as we kick this next portion over and you get to hear Zack and I talk about, and we were live in person, which makes it even more fun. We don't get to do that very often. So enjoy hanging out, me and Zack, and as we talk through some of the operational stuff. I'm 5 years into running business, right? And we've just gotten to the point of really outsourcing, bringing on teams and everything else. What's the best way for us to set it up so we're actually operations is taken care of, we're bringing the right people on, they're doing the right mechanics? What's our move to get the right people and do the right things?
I think the big piece for me is finding that operations manager,
Right.
the implementer and integrator. And those are two different pieces attached. If you know EOS
Yep.
and traction, having those people that manage those people. So if it's an office manager or that mid level, so if you don't have a lot of people won't have a COO at that point, right? But they'll be the CEO, the CMO, they'll have all these vision pieces. They've been doing that operations piece for so long, but they start hiring these people. Oh, we need this graphic designer, a social media person, a salesperson, and then they're now managing all of that, right?
Yep.
So you have the SOPs, hopefully at this point. If you don't have the SOPs, go all the way back, get the SOPs in place, right?
All right, so there. I mean, we have a lot of the SOPs, but where somebody start in creating those SOPs? I mean, we do it kind of as we go along, where we're like, okay, here's step one, step two, step three, document. How does somebody come up with their SOPs so that they can get these people in here doing things?
I would do it every time you hire somebody
Okay.
because it's going to shift, right? So from the time you started your company, your SOPs have shifted just a
Right.
smidge, right?
Well,
Especially for scalability.
completely.
So it turns
Because
into
our original SOPs are built so we can do it, not for
yes,
scale, right?
yes. So you do it one way, then you hire somebody, and you teach them to do it. As you teach them to do it, document it.
Right.
And then you start, whether it's via video or whether it's actually like, and I like doing both. You videotape it and then you can transcribe it. I do like a bullet point outline, step 1, step 2, step 3, all the way down to the granularity of I'm teaching you how to complete this process. And then as you continue to grow and scale, that person you hire somebody else is now responsible for teaching that. And you document it again, go back and
So
polish that up
you say
more.
teach that. In my head, the way I've always looked at it is, yeah, it's teach it, but it's their job to actually create the process. So we create the SOP based on how we believe we do it. They come in, refine it so it actually works for them.
Right.
And then they actually own the process when they can teach it to somebody else.
Yes. So they're massaging all the process.
Yep.
So the SOP from 2 years ago is going to be different than what they're actually doing today. Right.
Right,
You might
right.
not have documented that piece, which is fine. But the moment you bring in another person, as they start teaching it, do the same process again. Start documenting, redo the SOP, polish up the SOP. So hey, this is how over the last 2 years I found it's easier to do it this way, this way.
And
this
by the way,
way.
in case anybody's listening, SOP is standard operating
Yes,
procedure.
sorry.
And I'm just
It's
a bad
new
guy.
yeah.
I was
new
just
meth people
going
on
with it, right?
Yeah, so you continually, and the big thing, people do these business plans, they do these marketing plans, all these plans,
Yeah,
right?
I'm
And they get 30, 40, 50 pages into it
of nothing.
of nothing,
Right.
right? It's a great, and we talk about it in the military, left and right limits,
Yep.
right? It's a great bumper rails, but we have to recognize it should be a fluid document.
Yes.
It's not the US Constitution.
Or
Right.
another way of saying a living document.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Living, breathing, where it ebbs and flows. It gives you an idea of where you want to go, but it's not telling you how to get there.
Right.
Right. The
Right.
SOPs are where it kind of breaks it down a little bit more. This is how you get to this end result. And you keep documenting that and refreshing it and redoing. It's not, all right, I'm good. I did this once.
Right.
We can keep going and I can build this monument to myself about this great business. And it
Yeah,
doesn't work
'cause
that way.
I know for me, my biggest struggle is I hire people, I believe they should be the expert in it.
Mhm.
And then my worst thing that I do is think that they can read my own head.
Yep.
Right. So I'm like, okay, you're the best at this. Go do this. And then they come back and the deliverable is not what I'm looking for. But I didn't tell them exactly what the
Right.
deliverable I need because I assume they're an expert. So how do I wrap my head around or slow it down enough to be able to say, okay, here's what I need created when I have my own beliefs that fuck, this is what you do. You should be fucking good at it,
Right.
right? How do I slow it down enough to be able to get them more than just SOPs? Because SOP is going to
Yep.
give me an outline, but it doesn't necessarily give me the deliverable.
So it depends how you're doing it. Is it an employee, different way of doing it, or is it a
1099s.
1099 or a fractional? You're outsourcing it to a marketing firm,
Right.
say
Right.
they have their own vision and belief and whatever. So which avenue? Because you're going to do it very differently depending on how it is. If it's an employee, you're going to invest a lot more time and effort,
For sure.
right? If it's a fractional company that you brought in to do it for you, they should have this level of expertise.
So as someone's growing their business, do they look at fractional? Do they look employees? They look at 1099. I mean, where do we
Man,
go?
I still don't have W-2 employees.
Me either.
Like,
and I don't have any desire to.
No, because it complicates things.
Yes.
So I love a great 1099.
Because if they're not working out, you just remove them, you get the next one.
Yes, but also it also gives you the capability as a leader. Usually 1099 employees don't want to be in this world. They don't necessarily want to be employees.
Yes.
They have their own thing going.
Yes.
You can feed into that and that will further help you grow as well. And if they end up leaving you because they built their own thing, well,
Right.
now they're a great referral partner for you, whatever that may be, right? I love a fractional employee. 1099s can be fractional employees of that capacity, but a fractional COO.
I love this idea of fractional employees because we haven't looked at it that way. We've hired 1099s and we've outsourced, but I love the idea of fractional because in my head, if they're a fractional, then they are legit the best at what they do because
Mhm.
you're hiring a fractional COO, a
Yep.
fractional operations manager, even a fractional marketing company, right? That means they're running that inside your company,
Yep.
outside of it, right? Which I really love that idea.
If you have the capability to trust,
Correct.
right? You
Correct.
can't bring in a fractional COO and then micromanage a fractional COO. Like they're your COO.
Right.
So there's a lot that goes into bringing in somebody like myself to be your COO and recognize if that person's idea is I'm going to be a COO for this company forever, that's the wrong person.
Yes.
As a fractional COO, my job is come in, make sure everything's working really well, and then help you find an operations manager, integrator, and implementer that is going to be a 40-hour a week employee for you.
Right.
And I hire to replace myself, and I go on my way. I have enough companies. I don't want to be your COO too, right? So if that attitude is, oh, this is going to be a great client for the next 5 years for me, to me, that's not a fractional employee
Right.
anymore. You just brought on a COO.
Right. Right. Yeah. Because I love that thought process of being able to go fractional and bring in the actual person that's smart as hell. Because I think oftentimes my biggest struggle is lost in translation. You know, I'll have a idea in my head of this is what I want to accomplish, and feel like we've had some great conversations wrapped around what we want done, and then the deliverable on the back end doesn't, end up being the result that I needed to happen. And I know that's a communication fault of my own, saying this is exactly what I want to do. But I love this idea of doing it from the fractional and looking at it from the perspective of, if it's fractional, they should be helping me replace themselves. That's fucking
100%.
brilliant. That is fucking
100%.
brilliant.
Because it creates something where, one, the growth happens, but two, it keeps you streamlined. And you'll notice back in when COVID hit, people that had mass amount of W-2s couldn't either everybody was fired and they're like screwed, or they couldn't streamline their overhead enough to survive.
Yes.
And one of the pieces that thankfully for me, prior to 2020, I had a year of training where I had to 15 months basic training, all that stuff.
Yep.
How do I streamline my operations? A year in Afghanistan. How do I streamline my operations? So for me, it's been like literally in the trenches of how do I make my company operate so streamlined, my overhead's minimal, everything I do so minimal, where if COVID hit, I'm like, okay, it didn't bother me any because I didn't have to lay off a bunch of people. I
Right.
didn't have to worry about unemployment. I had to worry about all this other stuff. Some people might say, oh, that's a bad way to do business. But for me, it's like, that's a smart way because I've survived. Those companies that didn't survive, that couldn't hire those people back, that's a bad way to do
Yeah.
business because now nobody's profiting on that.
Yep. Well, and even for us, which I loved, is we were already an online business. So when COVID hit, it was, we just had to add additional business model that helped other people and do what we had already been doing, which was how we came up with SEN and everything. So that's been a really cool thing. And I would say that for most people, the ability to adapt in a moment is a fucking huge, huge thing that they got to be able to do.
Yeah.
So, there's so many people that are handbook this, handbook that, they're, all this documentation. Are you a document heavy when it comes to the operation side of things, or is it more fluid in nature?
I think you have to document. I hate it myself at times because it can be arduous, right? It can be really like a pain in the ass to document everything. But when you go back to scalability, you're gonna have to do it anyways. Right. If you want to be able to replace yourself and not be a job, which we talk about a lot. If you want to build a business, you have to think. A great book, Built to Sell.
Yeah.
And it talked about the processes and like this is like the person bought the process that he developed. Right. That's the whole piece. Well, if you don't document it, there's nothing to show.
Right.
You're literally just floating out in the ethers. So to me, it's better to go ahead and start early, get in the habit of documenting these things. Because at some point you're going to have to, when it comes to like, all right, now I want to scale my company beyond, then you're going to have to go back and be like, oh shit, we got to catch up. We got to go all the way back. And now that becomes where a lot of people recognize like, oh, I don't want to do that. It's too much work to go back and do that process. So they hit a ceiling because they're unwilling to go back to do the process of documenting a process to scale and grow. So it's like, that's too much of a pain in the ass. I'm not going to do it. All right. Well, you just limited yourself.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. And the other thing that kept popping in my head is, there's a lot of moving parts inside. We have 3 companies, you have like a bajillion companies at this point. For us, we have to use Asana as a project management tool to make sure we're doing the right thing at the same time. Do you guys recommend Asana or some similar programs, or a program you're all into? Or
I've used ClickUp, Monday, Asana, what's the other one? Slack. Right. There's so many different, they're all the damn same. At the end of the day, they all achieve the same, the baseline. It's like a CRM. A CRM is a CRM is a CRM. All of them have a little bit of flavor to them that make it a little bit different. Asana is a great one. Like I like it because of the capability. It's user friendly on every side. So when you introduce a lot of people in Asana, it's like just follow these taskings, done.
Right.
But I think you have to have something like that a lot of people will do, like an Excel spreadsheet, check in and whatever. I'm like, that becomes a pain in the ass where it's not lifetime uploaded, or like I'll use like everything I've built is on Google, right? So it's
Yep.
on the Google workspace. So
Yep.
everything's live shared and file share and updating share. Asana's one of those that is perfect for that check-in process, perfect for accountability, perfect for this is what we're doing without you having to come ask. It's like, you better be updating your sheet,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah. It's funny is so we use Asana. I've learned it. I've got into it, and we've had vendors come to us and they're like, "Hey, we're going to use this program because we're good at it." Kevin will immediately step in and goes, "No, we won't. It took me this long to get Donnie to use this shit
Yep,
and get
yep,
good at this shit. You're not going to change it all
yep,
up." And then to your point, you've got to use what you're comfortable with,
yep,
or you're just not going to use it at all.
100%.
So
Especially with the CEOs,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
As an
yeah.
ops guy, I'll use whatever the hell the CEO is comfortable with or
Right.
the business owner is comfortable with, because at the end of the day, I need you to do it. And I actually ran into this with a business partner I had on that international dance competition. Visionary, would not return emails, would not get into paperwork, wouldn't do the simple things, and expected me to do it all. I'm the COO of this side of it, of the partnership. He expected me to do all these things and then would ask me, "Hey, how do I actually access that so I can review it? Like, where I've taught you this."
Right.
Like, so it became like a
You
incompetency.
sound like Kevin.
100%. I understand his rage, right? Because at some point it becomes, hey, as a CEO, you're now being incompetent.
Yep.
Because I've taught you this over and over again. You expect it of these people that don't give a shit about
Yep.
our project, and you
Yep.
won't do it yourself. Okay, well, how can I turn around and say to our employees, hey, you need to do this when you won't do it yourself? And it becomes that little bit of hypocritical. And I don't love the mindset of lead by example, but to an extent, you have to walk the walk.
Well, yeah,
You know what
yeah.
I
I
mean?
mean, I have to tell myself on a regular basis, like, if I won't do it, how the fuck can I teach it?
100%.
That's why I do the live
Or
cold
expect
calling.
it
Right,
beyond
right,
that. Or
right. I expect
that's
it.
the
It's
big
even more,
piece,
yeah,
the expectation management. They're going to look at you and be like, "Ah, you're not doing it. So why am I going to do it? Like,
that's
how are you going to discipline me or chastise me for not doing something you're unwilling to do yourself?"
well, and that's why there's such a fine balance in being a CEO. On one hand, you need the ego to fucking drive. You need
Yep.
to be the fucking guy getting after it, but you also need the humility of doing the things that you traditionally don't think maybe a CEO should do, but those are the exact things they have to do to
Mhm.
have those expectations of others.
And the
So
reality of it is, as a small business owner, until you hit 30, 40, 50 employees, you're still seeing most of your employees every day.
yeah,
You're
yeah,
not so far removed. At some point, you get so far removed, they don't know whether or not you're doing it because you have so many layers in
yeah,
between.
yeah,
But some of those, that middle management level is doing that piece, right?
for sure.
So you're going to that person, you're expecting them to do it. Well, essentially, it's the same thing as you when you had a smaller team. If you're the
Great
team
example.
leader,
Yeah,
right? You're expecting now when you become the platoon leader or the platoon sergeant, you expect those team leaders to do the thing. So if you weren't doing it as a team leader, you can't expect that flow,
right,
right?
right.
So as you promote up, you're still so close and granular. As a platoon leader had 35, 40 soldiers at different times. They could literally see what I was doing and what I was not doing. As a company commander, that E1, E2 is not going to see what you're doing every day,
Right,
right?
right.
So think you until you really get removed and you have 100 employees, they're going to be watching and noticing, and that is like a make or break point, right?
Love that.
Especially as you're scaling.
For sure, for sure. Dude, thanks for doing this, man. This is a hell of a conversation, and I love it even when I get challenged on my own thought process. So appreciate the fuck out of it.
Always go Army.
Fuck off. Man, what a cool conversation. I love hanging out with that dude. I think we're going back in July to hang out with him for his event. So that'll be a really good time. What'd you like most about Zach and him talking through the operational stuff?
It was interesting listening to him talk, and I got to have a conversation with Zack last week as well, and we had similar conversations. Was the talking about the different levels of people you need to have in running operations, and you need the implementers that are actually doing the stuff, but then you need the integrators and the visionaries, and where they all really fall into. They all have a specific role that needs to be played. Otherwise, the processes and the operations, the systems that you've set up, they break down and they fall apart and they just crash. So I love hearing about that, because I think that's really applicable to what we have going on within Success Champions right now, is figuring out all those parts and getting the right people, who are our implementers, who are actually doing the stuff, so that you and I can really focus on the visionary integrator type roles and making sure all the things are firing in a systematic way and moving forward. So he is really just fun to talk about and let him nerd out about that type of stuff. So I
Well,
wish
and
I wish I would have been there too to be in that conversation. So
yeah, well, you guys would geek out more on this stuff than I would for sure. Uh, the the biggest thing that I like talking to guys like Zack or even Thomas Keenan, we talked to him not too long ago, is operations is not my strong suit in business at all. So I need guys like y'all in my life to help get the operational sides more dialed in, and something that I'm focused on trying to get this better. Because one thing that he brought awareness to me is, as a company, we tend to look more for the leaders versus the doers, and
yeah.
making sure we don't get top heavy as we go along. So it's a good freaking way to always look at your business to figure this out. And I like this new style of how we're doing the show, because a lot of cool lessons learned from some people that are doing this shit on an everyday. So it's gonna be fun as we continue going. So guys, if you got any value to or add anything out of this episode, do us a favor. Please make sure you're subscribed. If you're on YouTube, ring the bell. Comment below with what some of your takeaways are. And please send us an email or DM us on any of the platforms with your thoughts and takeaways of everything on today's episode. And share this out with one person, man. Sharing this out and getting one other person to listen to the show is huge for us. So, as always, love you, mean it. See you, bye.